So the author says how to read a map. This is just for knowledge sake and for understanding the case. It's not because this is a condition for knowing how to face the Qiblah. You don't have to know how to read a map to face the Qiblah. So what do? Very simple. There's 4 directions: north, east, south, and west. So this is broad case I'm going to give you right here. How do you face the Qiblah? You have to have certain knowledge of some facts. If you have some knowledge of some facts, then you'll be able to face the Qiblah. So you can ask yourself, for example, where does the sun rise first? Where I am or where the Kaaba is? So whichever place the sun rises first, that's east of the other place. So if the sun rises at the Kaaba before it rises where he is, he'd say it's east of me. And if it rises where he is before it rises at the Kaaba, he'd say it's west of me. So that's east and west. He would say also, where is the North Star higher? Where I am or where the Kaaba is? So if he knows that, then he can use that. So if the answer is the North Star is higher where I am than where the Kaaba is, then it means that Kaaba is south of him. And the vice versa means Kaaba is north of him. So right there, all of that is north, east, south, and west. You don't have to know how to read a map to face the Qiblah. Is that clear? And here, also before I go forward. So remember, this is how you answer a person who asks you, how do I face the Qiblah at the North Pole? What's my direction? What he wants you to tell him is the direction. But the answer you should give him is, you just answer 2 questions for yourself and you'll know. Where does the sun rise first? Where the Kaaba is or where you are, if you're supposing you're in the North Pole? And where is the North Star higher? Where the Kaaba is or where you are? You put those together, you're going to know your Qiblah. Even if you're at the North Pole. That's what you do. That's a rule. So whatever that gives you, that's what your Qiblah is. I don't have to tell you a particular direction by name. You understand? So this is how one reads a map. Cartographers draw 2 sets of lines, east-west lines parallel to the equator and north-south lines crossing the equator. The result is a grid, a network of reference lines for pinpointing locations and establishing distance and direction between places. So you have here these 3 circles, right? It says parallels, lines of latitude, meridians, lines of longitude, and then it says graticular network. You see all of that? All right. You see the first one where it says parallels, lines of latitude, has line going across, that's the equator. And the second one, meridians, lines of longitude, those are the ones going up and down. It has one called prime meridian. So that's like the equator, but going the other way. But it's not exactly like the equator. I'll show you inshallah ta'ala. And then when you put all of that together, that's the third one, the bottom one. Okay. One thing I want to point out for you is that don't forget that there's an optical illusion here. Can you tell me what it is? Okay. I think you're saying what I want you to, or you're noticing what I want you to notice. I think you're noticing what I want you to notice. So they have all these circles and swerving lines and some coloring, some light lighter color in the middle, darker color around the edges, gives the impression of something spherical. That's an optical illusion there, because there's no sphere there. In reality, this is just flat image we're looking at. The position of a point north or south of the equator is known as its latitude. Its lines are called parallels of latitude, or simply parallels. Lines of latitude run east-west, meaning across. They run across. But north-south positions are referenced by them, up and down. So the latitude goes across. But what do you use them for? You use them to measure up and down. You understand? You look at the first one. They have lines going across. That's for measuring up and down. I'm keeping simple words here. Finding coordinates up and down. And then a second set of lines passing through the poles is known as meridians of longitude, or simply meridians. One meridian is designated as the prime meridian. Here. One meridian is designated as the prime meridian. That's why I said to you, it's not exactly like the equator. Equator is set. What prime meridian could vary. Depends on the map. Okay? You understand? All right, so look at the three again. 3 circles. So the first one, parallels. Lines of latitude. Yeah, and it's latitude lines. Latitude lines. First one is latitude lines. Second one is longitude lines. Meridians. I'm going to say mostly latitude and longitude. So the longitude lines going up and down. What do you use them for? You use them to find coordinates going across. You understand? You use the first one, the lines going across, you use those lines to find coordinates going up and down. The other one has lines going up and down, you use those to find coordinates going across. Yes, have to look at it and then also apply it. That's what they're there for. Just the fact that you look at them, they're going up and down, yes, but they're next to each other side by side. So that's so that you can find coordinates going across. First one has, the lines are going across, but they're over and under each other. So that's so that you can find coordinates going up and down. Clear? All right. Now this second one here says prime meridian. This prime meridian is similar to the equator in the first one, just from different angle. Equator is horizontal line going across. And prime meridian is vertical line, up and down. That's clear? All right. This prime meridian, that one is not set like equator is set. Maybe some maps might designate any other line as the prime meridian. Yani, what's the important thing about prime meridian? Because you have 0. We'll see. Yani, when you put the lines together, look at the bottom one. The combination of this grid here. These are coordinates. So the coordinates need reference point, like a center to go back to. So if you want to designate a point that's east or west of another point, it's going to be compared to the prime meridian. It's going to be compared to the prime meridian. Its coordinates, it's going to go back to the prime meridian. I'll give you an example. Let's start from the first one. So latitude. The equator is a line of latitude. The equator is a latitude line. Do you know what's the degree of the equator? 0 degrees. Do you know what's the degree of North Pole? 90 degrees north. What is the degree of the South Pole? Yes, 90 degrees what? 90 degrees south. So when you say 90 degrees north or 90 degrees south, north of what? Exactly. That's what you're referring back to. North of the equator, south of the equator. So that equator, that's reference point. 0 degrees. But for north and south, what's east and west? How do you reference east and west? Then you have another line that's called prime meridian. Because longitude lines are called meridians. So, of all the meridians, there's a prime meridian. That's going to be like the equator, but it's vertical instead of horizontal. Do you understand? Yeah, but it's not exactly like the equator because this prime meridian is subject to, you could like use a different meridian and call it the prime meridian. It's possible. Okay? Yeah, this equator though, nobody's going to say, no, a different line is the equator. So it's clear? So, the position of a point north or south of the equator is known as its latitude. Its lines are called parallels of latitude or simply parallels. So we're going to call it latitude or latitude lines. Lines of latitude run east and west. They go across. But north-south positions are referenced by them because they're stacked up and down, going up and down. So you use them to pinpoint positions north and south. That's clear? The entire USA and Canada has a higher degree of latitude than Mecca. So Mecca is south of the United States and Canada. Is that clear? Yes. There is no map that exists that puts Mecca northeast of United States and Canada. A second set of lines passing through the poles is known as meridians of longitude, or simply meridians. So we're going to call them longitude lines. Latitude and longitude. Passing through the poles. All of them go up to the poles, pass through the poles. Do you understand what that means? They all pass through the poles, all the meridians. All the longitude lines connect at the poles. No, latitude lines go across. There's 2 coordinates I'm telling you. 90 degrees north of equator. 90 degrees south of equator. These 2 coordinates, all of the longitude lines converge at those 2 coordinates. That's not true of the latitude lines. You understand? So, a second set of lines passing through the poles is known as longitude lines. One meridian is designated as the prime meridian. So, we just talked about that. The position east or west of a prime meridian, whichever one of those meridians is designated as the prime meridian on a map. The position east or west of a prime meridian is its longitude. Lines of longitude run north and south. That means they go up and down. But you use them for what? for pinpointing east-west positions. That's why they're next to each other. That's clear? Not on top of each other, but next to each other. There is no difference in opinion that Mecca is to our east. But it is not true that east is sufficient. I say who wants to settle there has something he needs to look into in himself. The North Star proves otherwise. East is not enough. The North Star proves otherwise. Yani, because some person's going to tell you, what, east, I want to face east, I face east. What about east? Some said east is valid. Really, it's not sufficient. East is not sufficient. The obligation is to face the most accurate direction. The North Star proves otherwise. The fact that the North Star is higher where we are than it is at the Kaaba means that there has to be some degree of south in one's Qiblah from those countries, United States and Canada. Is that clear? Here are other projections with the respective latitude and longitude lines. So here we have this one. This first one here. Inshallah, that's clear for you. So you see the equator, 0 degrees. Red line going across horizontally. You see prime meridian, 0 degrees at the top. Going down, prime meridian, 0 degrees. So you use these lines, these ones that go up and down, to find spots that are north and south. And you use these lines, sorry. Let me say that again. You use these lines that go across, You use those to find location spots that are north and south. And you use these ones that go up and down to find coordinates that are east and west. The ones that go up and down, you use them to find coordinates that go side to side. Okay? The ones that go up and down, you use those to find coordinates from side to side. The ones that go across, you use those to find coordinates going up and down. Is that clear? Now, probably, most likely, my words are very crude. I'm not a map expert here. But inshallah, the point is to understand what's happening here. Amin Wafiq. It says here, a flat map is correct if the grid is correct. Now, this next one, when you look at it, looks, one might say, confusing. Lines all over the place. The question is this correct? So if it's correct, there's no problem with it. Just you need to know how to look at it, how to read it. You understand? What's the point here? The point here is, don't say that we can't use this map because it's not a globe. The map is not a Qibla proof, but it's not true to say we can't use this map because it's not a globe. The globe is not a Qibla proof, but someone saying that is someone who doesn't know how to read the map, or he doesn't want to. That's clear. There are various projections, but if the parallels and meridians are correct, the map is correct. It is for this reason our determination of Mecca being southeast of the USA does not contradict any map, and we're not relying on the map to say it. And it doesn't contradict any map. There is no map that actually says otherwise, and we don't rely on the map to say it. We're actually reading the map and following its rules. Or really, what's even more accurate is the map complies with the Qibla proof. They are the ones who are not using the map properly. That's a better statement than what's written here. It says, we're actually reading the map and following its rules. Better statement is, the map complies with the Qiblah proofs. They are the people who are not facing proper direction. They're not using the sunnah for facing the Qiblah. They're not using the globe properly. Without the map being our proof, the map complies with the reading of the North Star. There, that's the statement there. With all the Qiblah proofs, not just the North Star. There's nothing wrong with the map, flat map or globe. There's nothing wrong with either one of those as far as the map is concerned, being a map. As long as the land masses fall on the grid properly, the distortion of the map is irrelevant. They're going to say you can't use flat map because distortion. Globe is distorted also. What matters is if the grid is right. Is that clear? The distortion of the map is irrelevant concerning the direction, not the size. Not the size. The distortion of the map will make some lands, depends on the distortion, make some lands look bigger or smaller than others. Now, some people make a big deal about whether this is psychological and racism and things like that. All that matters is that the grid is right here, mostly, Yani. That's what really matters. If the grid is right, then that's a usable map. The string over the globe is itself distortion on the map. When did Muslims become ignorant of how to read maps? Because people traveled the earth and they made maps, so they had to make a system of where things are in relation to each other. Like sailors, for example. That's clear? Yeah. Those are the people who did this originally. That's the people who traveled the land and they mapped everything. The pioneers of humans. Pioneers of humanity. Therefore, the equator is 0 degrees on any flat map or globe. Even if that map's projection shows the equator bending, or if it shows the equator broken, disjointed, or closer to the top of the page, or closer to the bottom of the page. You understand that? Look at this picture here. So, yes. So here the equator is going to be broken because of the way it's laid out. Still 0 degrees. According to this right here, Mecca is still southeast of the United States and Canada. The projection doesn't change that. There's just a person who's ignorant, doesn't know what he's talking about. It's clear. Also, North and South poles are both 90 degrees on any flat map or globe, no matter the projection or distortion. Here's another. North Pole, South Pole is going to be 90 degrees north and south. Their rejection of a flat map is not truly because the globe is a better representation. Because it doesn't matter. By now it should be clear then. It doesn't matter whether it's flat or it's a globe. So what's the problem with flat map? It's because the flat map, by virtue of being flat, exposes the change in the direction. Flat map makes them unable to put the string over the globe. It exposes the change in direction that they somehow hid from so many people by slightly shifting a globe like an amateur magic trick. Is that clear? And so we asked the Northeast supporter, the one who argues for it, is latitude and longitude relevant or not? If he says yes, then he must face southeast in the United States and Canada, with varying degrees of south depending on where he is in the United States and Canada. Not all one direction. There's range there. East is confirmed the whole way, and how much south depends on where you are. Are you in Florida? Are you all the way, I don't know, those Canadian provinces? Which one's most northern? But southeast to one degree or another throughout all of that. If he says yes, latitude and longitude is relevant, then he must face southeast, as per reading the map as it should be read. Not really though, because the map is a proof. Yani, this talk here even could use some adjustment now. Just not to give the impression that the map is a proof. It's not. The map just happens to comply. If he says no, then how and why is he calling his line northeast in the first place? If he says no, latitude and longitude is not relevant, then how did he even call his line northeast? Because to know north on the map is by the latitude lines, and to know east on the map is by the longitude lines. So the only way you can say northeast is by reading the latitude and longitude lines. That's clear? That is as far as reading a map is concerned. In reality, knowing north would be by the North Star, and that's what you're going to do. And knowing east would be by the sunrise. However, a mere ball or sphere is not regarded as having a north or south. A ball or a sphere is not something that has a north or a south. We talked about the difference between the real earth and a map. Those people compare the real earth to the map. And that's why they say, as one person said, more than one person, they said, you can get to the Kaaba by going east or west because the earth is round. So you can go either direction. Just one way is going to take longer than the other way. You can conceive one of them saying that, right? Yeah. Do you have an answer for that? Okay. What I would say to him is, you can't even prove this talk of yours here. What did he say? Can you tell me back what he said to you? What's the claim we're discussing now? What you mean by the globe? The map? Okay, so hold on. He's saying the earth itself, the real earth. It's not talking about a globe. He's saying to you, Mecca, you can go north, you can go west or east. Doesn't, whichever way you go, you're going to make it to the Kaaba. Because the earth is round. He's not saying the globe, he's saying the real earth. He's saying because the earth is round, you're going to get to Mecca, whether you go east or west. Either way, you're going to get there. It's just depending on where you are. One way is going to be longer. But because the earth is round, you're going to come back around eventually and get there. Do you understand his point? All right. He is using distance, but hold on. He's doing something else that's very important for you to address. He's talking about something that he cannot prove. Yes, you cannot prove this. This is a theory. Because if you say to him, do it, he won't be able to do it. So it's a claim that doesn't have any evidence. It's based on an imagination and an assumption. Thinking that the earth really is like the globe. Comparing the world to a map like we live on the globe. And really the earth is not like that. And we don't find directions on real earth like you do on a globe or a map. On a map you use latitude and longitude lines. In real world you use sun and stars. And to claim that you can go either direction, that's a mere claim that he could never, ever, ever prove. And I wouldn't be surprised if he thinks you're a moron for saying that he can't prove this. But it's a fact, though. It's absolutely is a fact. Or else you're telling him to do it. Let's see. He can't do it. Okay. All right. Who did it? And nobody that you know. Can you give me a name? No. So you have no proof for this claim of yours. So that's how I would address him here. I wouldn't tell him distance and this and that. So in the first place, you talk about something that you can't even prove. You're talking about something that's complete assumption. You don't even realize that you live in a delusion. So once we assign north or south on the ball or sphere, it becomes a sort of map. Doesn't have north or south in reality. Some ball, if you have a basketball, it doesn't have north and south. You understand? So when you assign north to some point on that ball and south to some point, this is a map. We don't live on a map, though. We live on something called Earth. That's a type of thing. Earth is a type of thing. Allah created more than one of them. The person who supports northeast cannot hold both sides. If he wants a round object like an orange or a tennis ball, simply for its shape, then cardinal directions do not apply to it. It's not a map. And no string over it can validly be called northeast just because you put a string on this orange. Although he can successfully find the shortest distance between 2 points on the surface of that object by placing the string over it between those 2 points. He brings an orange and he puts a string. Yeah, okay, you can find the shortest distance over the surface of this orange by putting the string. Yeah, but that has nothing to do with this religious judgment here. That's nice geometry you showed me there. That's clear? If he wants a globe, he cannot ignore the fact that it is a map, not a mere ball, and thus he cannot validly name a line northeast in the way that he does. That is not how you read a map. Nor can he refuse any other map, because of its distortion. That's his claim. These are distorted. We can't use them. The string over the globe is a distortion itself. Because all the maps have one thing in common, the latitude and longitude lines. His string itself is a greater distortion than anything else on the map. So if the grid on the map is irrelevant, then based on what is he determining north and east on the globe when he pulls his string? If he names his line northeast because of a north pole at 90 degrees and an equator at 0 degrees, then he has to be consistent all the way through and accept the latitude and longitude coordinates in between 0 degrees and 90 degrees. He has to accept the whole grid and then face southeast with varying degrees of south depending on where he is. If he wants to ignore all the latitude and longitude lines, then he has confessed that he is not seeking a direction on the map. So what is he using the map for? He's not using it for a map. Then that's why he's going to pull out an orange if he wants to. Or a tennis ball. And he has validated that of which we have accused him, not facing the direction. Wabillahi tawfiq. You have any question? Okay, for example, didn't people used to not know that these continents even exist? people over in, they didn't know about this hemisphere, North America and South America. So when they got here, then what did they know? Like, how did the maps we have now, who drew them? It's based on the people who came and they basically surveyed the land. Those are the pioneers. That's literally what the pioneer is. Pioneer is a person who goes out. It's like, it might be his job, for example, or maybe he's an adventurer. He could be hired by I don't know their names. He could be hired by the government, for example. Like in those old days, they could have hired guys to go out and survey the land and make maps and stuff. Does their job. Could have took them years. They don't even know what's here until they finally reached West Coast. They discovered California and stuff, for example. No, they're not Muslims. Humans. That's why I said humanity. Pioneers of humanity. Could be Muslims, could be not Muslims. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك